What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Hollywood Already Did It, your podcast for movie reboots, remakes, sequels, adaptations, and anything else that's technically been done before to see why we keep doing it and if there's anything new to mine from these old ideas. As always, I'm your host, Blake Schultz, and with me is Terrence Tatum.
Hello, everyone.
And it is the spooky season is upon us. We're watching Jack-o'-lanterns rot again in theaters as Halloween Kills comes. And that's, we saw it happen practically 40 years ago. We saw it in reverse practically. Kills had a bunch of fun ones. And now for some reason, we have one folding outwards like some spirograph. I don't know why this was the evolution of that trope, but that's how this movie kicks off. So buckle in. It is time to talk about the third and final in David Gordon Green's requel to the Halloween franchise.
Still don't know what to call this. Yeah.
Second requel, the fourth timeline, I believe. Where is my Halloween Kills multiverse movie? So what did you think, Terrence?
Yeah. So there's a lot to unpack on this one. Let me start off with the beginning of this trilogy. I did really enjoy the first of David Gordon Green's films. I liked it quite a bit. The second one, not so much. I did not like that at all. Can have a fun drinking game about how many times that evil dies tonight, but I did not enjoy that film whatsoever. So this one I went in with low expectations. I was like, cool, whatever. This isn't going to, whatever. And somehow it still managed to not meet those low expectations. There's some things about this that I do thoroughly enjoy, and there's a lot that I just question and I'm very confused by. I think the third act of this film is brilliant. I think it's when it gets into its bag and it's great. But you have about 2 acts of this that are slow, confusing, and I understand the message that David Gordon Green is trying to say. He's basically saying with the second one, all the violence has had an effect on the town. This one, generationally, violence and whatnot has had an effect. I get that. It's just not handled correct or very well. It's kind of messy. And I think the character of Corey, as we'll get into this a little bit, how you feel about this movie is made or break on whether or not you accept Corey's story. And for me, it doesn't work. It's very messy. There are parts of it that I get, but because both it is slow and methodical and it is not very entertaining, it is just kind of a chore to get through. It's just like, oh my God, when are we getting to the good stuff? And until that third act hits, I'm like, this is what I'm here for. And so I sat here the entire movie like, yeah, I know this is Halloween. I know the original conceit of Halloween as a whole was like, maybe we should make these anthology movies. And they sort of did that with Season of the Witch, which wasn't well received before, but now is. But the difference between Season of the Witch and this is that Season of the Witch didn't have any of the primary characters in it. Michael Myers wasn't in it. Laurie wasn't in it. All of those characters were gone. I think this movie may have conceded probably worked a little bit better had we taken Laurie, Allison, and Michael out and just did the story about this and then maybe put Michael in the back end. Because you didn't, and because this is the final part of this trilogy, I kind of just like, it's better than Kills, but still not good.
Ooh, better than Kills. That's a I'm like, I don't know, stuff happens in Kills. Because I agree with everything you said, and it breaks my, like, I don't know, I guess a cardinal rule of like a movie where I'm like, I'm just bored. Mm-hmm. And I saw it on Peacock because I was out of town and then came and was like, I'll just do this. And the whole time I was like, I'm so glad I'm not in a theater because I'm just like frustrated and restless and like just you're a step ahead of this movie, every single piece of it. And we're doing like film school rule breaking where we're like, he leaves a knife in the beginning and then we like pan to, I was like, no, we see the knife. We don't need, or like really weird stuff. Like the banister is lit like this Hitchcock movie, but you're still sort of like, okay, but like there's too many shadows now. I understand that you're trying to do something with this, but like, where is the light even coming from? And I said this and my roommate was like, well, if that's bothering you, like buckle up. Because you're right. A lot of interesting ideas that we'll get really, really more into. But I was like, everything they presented didn't go anywhere. There were not nearly enough scares or tense moments or tension in general. And these characters weren't interesting. And it's very interesting to look at a franchise that has taken it upon itself to retroactively elevate a movie that didn't need elevating in the first place.
Yeah, it's the blueprint anyway. Without anything else, Halloween, the original, is the blueprint of all horror films.
Because you can dissect Halloween 1,000 ways from to Sunday, and people talk a lot about women, violence, babysitting, well, all of these things. And John Carpenter for years has been like, it's just a slasher movie. Like this isn't some A24, everything means something. I have something to say. I just wanted to do this. And now 2018 did such a good job of imposing, like, oh, it's about the trauma. Mm-hmm. And the first one is like, we're going to follow Jamie Lee Curtis's trauma and how her family doesn't believe it and how she thinks she's protecting them. And then it turns out that like she was right, but she also was ready. The trauma didn't beat her. She prepared for this. And then, the town's trauma and the city and how it makes you crazy. And now we're doing this, like, I don't know, generational, I guess. We've almost sort of like left the trauma behind, and this movie is now like, actually the town pushes you. And I was like, well, does it? Because your first one was about how the town was traumatized by an event. So you've done that, but now you're positing that society traumatizes people. Now you're on some Joker kick.
Yeah.
Where you're like, actually, the Joker could have been a good person, but we did this. And it's like, no, because like the conceit of the movie, I guess spoilers, I suppose, is like Corey's babysitting. The kid does a prank. The prank goes wrong. The kid, in the most like comically violent way, Corey is screaming. He's locked in a closet. The kid is pretending Michael Myers is there. He has stolen the kitchen knife that if you didn't catch it, we panned to it. So you really understood that it was there and important. Corey's locked in a closet, kicking it down, screaming, I'm going to kill you. The parents come home, hear him say that he's going to kill their son.
Correct. And then
he manages to kick down the door, which let's just start with property damage before we get into all the other crimes. We've entered a room where the supervising adults, the guardian of the minor, is screaming violent death threats, and then is destroying property. And then incidentally, somehow, I don't know how the kid was holding this knife. The knife has been pushed into his chest. And the kick was also hard enough to knock this child over a banister that the movie films as if they're living in like a hotel. And there's just, it's so weird. I was like, what are they?
Getting my Hitchcock bag in right now.
The shadow at one point makes Corey look like Hitchcock Presents. And that's what I was like, okay, David. Now we're on some black phone. The kid is dressed like the It Kid. And I'm just tired of all of you. And I get it. Black phone is at least there's connections to Stephen King and all this. I understand. I'm tired. I'm tired of you putting nostalgia from other movies in your movie.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Smile at no point was like, hey, remember The Ring?
That was a good time,
We're doing The Ring. Like at no point was someone like, man, this is like that movie with that girl in the video. Like they just had a movie. Like just make a movie. Falls and it like explodes in front of the parents. And I just started laughing. I was like, it's like scary movie over the top comical. It is just so, I was like, I should never be laughing at a child dying on a screen.
Come on. If you have that reaction, or if you're even possible to have that type of reaction, then they failed at what they were trying to do. Like they didn't do this correctly enough or with enough. I actually think it would have been better to not even show the kid. Like he falls and you just don't show it. You see the parents' reaction. That would have
just have him get stabbed with a knife.
Than having this comical, like his body bleeds, folds over, flips over, and you just see blood spurting all over. Like that's funny. That's no longer you've passed the point of horror and you've now gone into parody.
Yeah, you're now like satirizing the original Halloween's opening with Michael and his sister.
Mm-hmm.
Like, And then we just have to parallel everything. Now Corey has a house just like Michael does to go to.
Yeah.
At one point, he's sleeping exactly where the kid was killed. He's somehow been acquitted. Somehow he got a good enough lawyer.
At the very least, involuntary manslaughter should have been a part of that. But
okay. He kicked down a door and made a verbal threat of assault.
Yeah.
Let's just start there.
There's a child dead because
had the kid even survived, he would be in trouble.
He's paraplegic at that point. Yeah.
And then the rest of the movie does this weird anti-superhero arc where now Corey has to find Michael, who's living in a cave, and bring victims to him. We learned that this homeless guy's on some Under the Silver Lake kick where he's been bringing victims to Michael. The homeless guy wants the mask. Corey kills him by accident, throws the knife away as if that's a great way to hide a murder weapon, and then has his spider bite moment where suddenly he doesn't need glasses. He has better posture, and his hair has gone from the nerd to I'm a sexy James Dean motorcycle riding bad boy. It's like a bad season of Dexter.
I think for me, the point, because it's weird, because this movie tries to do two things. It wants hey, let's feel sorry for Corey, and then at the same time realize that he's the violent beacon of what's happening from this point on. But he gets bullied, he gets teased, he gets all of this on a lot of that because he did murder a child. But the part where I just completely lost it with this movie is when the movie can't figure out if it wants to be supernatural or not, and it keeps doing these wide swings from back and forth. So when Michael meets Corey in the sewer and chokes him out, and then just starts staring in his eye, and there's this weird eye thing.
He sees his entire life.
It is not clear if there's a transference of power, or if there's transfer I can see that you've been bullied. I don't know what the fuck that means. And I'm just sitting here I'm out. I'm now done with this. You've lost me.
Yeah. And then we throw in some Maz Kanata. You see the same eyes in different people with Jamie Lee Curtis is those were Michael's eyes. And I was like, okay, I know that in the last one we did some nonsense where the town was killing him. And then, he's not really a man. Yeah. Every time he kills, he ascends.
Yeah, he woke up like the Undertaker and rose up and started beating people.
Yeah, the first person that he brings him, Michael kills him and then shakes and heals. And I was
powers up. It's he just took
some Goku,
more for Mario. It's I'm back.
Yeah, I was like, okay, so now you might as well just bring the paganism back. You might as well, because if you're gonna do a grounded Halloween Michael Myers, he's just a man, we should have killed him in the last movie.
Correct. And then just have this be a story about Corey. Michael's not even here.
I would, but this is the slasher movie problem where we keep having to be no, there was a pole in the ground and the lightning hit it and Jason woke up. Yeah, and it's fine, I guess.
You're towing this weird line where I think they would have been better either A, had they killed Michael and just taken him off the board, or remove the Strodes and kind of just have this being a Corey passed to Michael type of situation. Or Michael passed to Corey.
It's called Halloween Ends. We might as well have ended it.
Yeah.
And just been actually, then you can do your generational trauma thing, have the cycle repeat itself, and have this kid do it. Because it also sort of implies that Michael killing his sister was an accident. Because the whole time I was is he trying to suggest that
he's Corey?
Michael's normal?
Right. And he's that Corey, and Corey's was an accident, so was Michael's was an accident too, and he's a normal guy that then just got kind of beat up by the system.
Right. I was he's now trying to avoid the Rob Zombie movies by telling us everything.
Yeah.
And do something new, which requires him to tell us something. So we're left with this Friday the 13th part 5 copycat killer meets Sam Raimi's Spider-Man that also is supposed to end in the epic showdown of Laurie Strode and Michael Myers as if they're Batman and the Joker.
We're supposed to tie all of this together. Right. Because I started off here with this first film, I have to get there at some point in the end of this film.
And then it's an Easter movie. And it turns out that Michael's been in a cave and he's literally ascending.
Oh my God.
And he finally leaves his cave. and then we crucify him,
On a
and
car.
not just like some Neo blows up into space thing.
No, they actually.
Laurie impales his hand into one, impales his other hand in the other, and then Allison stabs him in the chest. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay. And then we do an inverted carrying of the cross up, and the town follows him to be thrown in a shredder. I was like, where's Casey Jones going, oops. Like, we just like, what are we? I was like, there's no way that we just inverted the like crucifixion story, which like would have been going up, being crucified, taken down, put in the cave, come back, ascends into heaven. And instead we're in the cave, get crucified, get shredded. And I was like, am I doing more work than David Gordon Green, or does he think he's a genius?
I also do love in that moment that the cops are so inept and so much care about like, hey, let's go ahead and crucify and shred this guy, that there's still a dead body in the Strode's home. Like Corey's body is still just hanging out there, and no one's doing a damn thing.
It's also amazing that like the town decided this was okay. Like this is in their town charters somewhere. Like, and you know, if we ever get Michael, here's what we're going to do.
Here's the thing. We were all planned it out. The sheriff's going to come and say, nope,
you know, we've got this giant shredder. Oh man, like what a doozy. And so then, that's the movie.
For me, with all of those issues, I actually still enjoyed a good portion of this. Like I said, the third act.
Yeah.
My biggest problem that I've had with this movie, and I can't shake it. Allison's characterization is completely, she's a terrible human being, and she's not the same person that was in the first two films.
Right.
And I'm sitting here like, you've literally changed her character only to fit what it is you're doing, as opposed to doing the work to get her there. And I don't accept that. I don't respect that. I don't accept that. It's wrong.
And I think that's because we don't really address Judy Greer.
Yes.
So like we kind of, it feels like there's another movie missing, because we sort of ignore where we would have left off. Time jump, and part of this is COVID,
right?
I'll assume. And then we're like, new character, new story, but we still promised you the showdown. And I was like, well, the showdown, once Corey gets the mask on and just slaughters Wish.com's Riverdale cast, it's great. For like 15 minutes, I'm like, this is awesome. We do this. She calls the cops to pretend a suicide threat's it, and then shoots Corey and does the like, all right, fine, you came to kill me. Right. And I was like, this is awesome. Now we're here. But we do all that work with Corey for Michael to just like snap his neck. And I was like, I get it. I don't want Michael to talk. I don't need exposition. But like, at least have Corey say something. Like, even we did this before and it turned out that the guy like was letting Michael go. At least he was like, you said I could watch.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so like, let's do something like that again. But then we're doing the same thing we already did.
We're right back in it. For me, Allison is weird because like she, after a while, is realizing that Corey, there is something wrong with Corey, and like Corey has murdered these people, and she's aware of it. She even comes in at the end and says it, but she's still willing to go with him, which doesn't make sense to me, considering that a person just like Corey murdered your mother. Like I don't.
Yeah. Well, and that's where when we talk about the why are we doing this, and we kind of get into the like the meat in air quotes of the movie, there's so many things that I'm like, oh, there was a really big try to make this relevant, new, interesting, and like make you think a bit. And I don't know if that's why anyone goes to Halloween movies, but I get it. Like every movie, even by accident, has a theme. Like John Carpenter has been like, Halloween's not about that, but it's like, I don't know. It's a lot of like preteens have sex and break these rules and die. I think that you maybe accidentally put more in there, and like we can all pull things out of it. And that's the fun part of movies and analysis. And is this just a fun slasher, or are we doing something here?
Right.
And it starts off for me because I think we were all worried that this was going to be a time jump COVID movie in a very literal COVID-19 is happening in Haddonfield, Illinois, and Michael Myers is back. And it's not. And instead you do this like fake news, misinformation DJ in the beginning. and then we kill him. And I was like, okay, I don't hate this. Because if you had made him some like Joe Rogan, Ben Shapiro, peddler of just like trying to rile people up, and the radio station's only in Haddonfield, and he's like interviewing victims from Halloween Kills, and everyone's like, no, you know what I saw is that like Lori tried to get us to go get this innocent guy, and then Michael shows up. I don't know, man. Like, you could have made it like less about the town being evil and more about like disinformation causes us to do like, and then bring that back into trauma of like, and here's what that does to the people around you.
And also, I think gives you disinformation also gives you a reason for Allison to kind of act the way she does. If she's getting stuff fed to her, like she's hurt, she's in pain. You start feeding her that stuff. That makes more sense for her to be like, all right, that's why I'm getting on this end. Yeah, I actually kind of would buy that more.
Yeah, and then his death, because like we cut his tongue out, and I was like, you know what, I'm a sucker for a good like, we're going to kill this, whatever your sin is. Oh, like Dexter does it. Most serial killer stories do it where it's like, oh, you some Saw bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you all your life, you were a podcaster and now you must lose the very thing.
Yeah.
So I was like, great. But we didn't really do any of that work. And he didn't ever do it to Corey. So for Corey to do it and take his tongue out is like, okay, we could have picked things from the last 2-3 years, put them in this movie as like a backdrop, had Corey be bad right away, a twist that his story isn't like Michael's, that this was all an accident, and Michael's also showing up to get his mask back. We could have just put the third act at the top and it been like, I don't know, man, people are dying again, but like, who's to say there's not just like 15 Michael Myerses now? Like who we don't even know what's real. Like if you could have done some weird, like Scream thing where they are like ghost faces everywhere. We've made it an icon now. And like, who even knows what's happening?
Yeah, I think that actually would play better for me if he was a quasi quote unquote copycat, but we get the reveal like this, the opening sequence comes back in the middle of the film and like, oh crap, he wasn't, the world made him this way. We bigged him up to be this beacon of evil, but he was actually just a normal kid that made a mistake.
And then you could have, when Michael kills him and get his mask back, you could have had some other character just be like, he wasn't even the boogeyman.
Yeah.
Like you could have had that like a more cathartic moment. And then your whole third act could have just been back to basics. Michael's on his rampage. Crucify him, I guess. But it's like every kind of thread in the movie has that where I'm like, man, we're really trying to do this. Like the town is evil, but Michael did just kill his sister. And I was like, it's been a while. And I was trying to remember, I was like, is there ever anything in one of the Halloween movies that's like, oh, it was because of this? And I was like, I think he just picks up the knife and stabs her.
It just goes. Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure, I don't remember if they were ever like, oh, well, you know, his parents or something. And thank God we didn't go back and add some scene like that. Where it was like, actually, he heard his dad saying he was going to kill the daughter. And so Michael just did it to get his dad's respect. Like,
I think for the horror icons, like the Freddy, even though they tried to explain Freddy, but Freddy's, Jason's, and Michael Myers, I think it's okay if they're just evil. Like we
talk about that a lot on this show, where I'm like, sometimes the bad character has to just be bad.
Yeah.
I like a relatable character, but sometimes it just has to be like Norman Osborn's Green Goblin is just evil.
These Jokers, they're just evil. That's how that's what makes that work.
Yeah. Like every now and then you're like, no, it's just good versus evil. We don't always have to have an Anakin Skywalker giant redemption moment. And I was like, okay, so I get it. Generational trauma, mirroring these other movies. But you also never really told me why Michael just would go to the Myers house and stare out the window. So for now, Corey to come back and like sleep where the kid died, we can kind of connect the dots and be like, this is where he killed his sister, I guess. But then again, you're like, well, is this a direct parallel or is this like an inverse? Because if it's a direct parallel, you're now implying that like we could have saved all these people.
Right.
You're on some Spider-Man No Way Home, like, well, we can fix Doc Ock, like, which is a very different story.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing with even like the Bible imagery. A part of you is like, this could work really well, but you're just kind of like choosing parts of the story and the imagery that you want.
It's piecemealing it
Instead,
together.
yeah. Instead
Yeah.
of like, there's no like there are no apostles for Michael Myers. There's no Judas. There's no like the town, because even in that story, it's like they said Jesus was bad and did this. So I was like, are we even now trying to be like, see,
Yeah.
we will all? And I'm like, well, you can't. This is weird. Like you're trying to do some like inverted Jesus story, and I don't even like it when we do it in Superman or The Matrix. So like, let's just not do it.
Yeah.
But so many little things in the movie like that I just was like, man, what an almost great idea. What an almost, even the dad being like, I was going to go forgive him and talk to him, but he was already like gone.
I love that scene. That was great. Him talking to them was like, yeah, and I saw the look in his eye, and I saw him. I knew that kid. I was like, I knew it was a mistake. I knew he was a good kid, and then I passed by him recently, and I'm like, he's a different. That's not him. That's not the same guy that babysat my kid. That's not him who was in the courtroom with him. I was like, oh, that's a fantastic sequence. I need more of that
Yeah.
expounded upon elsewhere. I love the sequence when the mom reacts to her when he sees her in the bar. I was like, yeah, that's a cool scene. We need more of those. I think this movie, because it is by name Halloween Ends, it fails at being a horror movie. It's not scary.
It's a drama.
It's a drama. Yeah. And so I think that is why a lot of people, me being one of them, have a hard time with this film. I feel like if you have never seen a Halloween film before, you probably will enjoy this. Be like, hey, this was fine. As a Halloween fan, you're gonna like, what the fuck is this?
Oh, I don't know that you would, because it's still just so
dry,
boring,
very dry. Yeah,
it is just so, until we like start getting these kills, it is just like, what are boring. Come on. And it's just so like, we get it. The town is pushing him to be bad. He had an accident, but you've made the accident so over the top and grotesque.
You did.
Had the kid got stabbed and survived, I would have been like, fair enough. Had the kid be able, like, if you had the kid be alive and at one point be able to be like, no, guys, I was young and I was doing a prank and he kicked open a door and he stabbed me in the stomach. But, it did cause my parents to get divorced. But like, we don't have to do this.
Right.
Like, have somebody who's like fighting, or even just give me the Batman moment. Like, give Laurie a beat to be like, kid, I could have done the same thing you did. I also had trauma, but you know what? I chose not to go on a killing spree.
Yeah.
Like, have the
friends that were in that group, like the girl, for the most part, seemed to be like, hey, we need to not, both girls actually, for the most part, seem to not be doing like, hey, let's not do this. Especially the other girl was like, why do we throw him over the bridge? And then they all kind of like, well, that's how it is. And
oops.
Right. One of them should have spoken up. It is that's the problem with this film. It keeps doing these things where we'll stip our toe in, but we won't go all the way. Is it supernatural? Is it not? Is it a drama? Is it not? Is it a horror film? Nope, it's not. It's none of those things. And that's why I think at the end of the day, it doesn't work for me, because it tries to do juggling a bunch of different balls in the air and none of them land.
I don't even mind the unhoused character who's like, I am Michael Myers. I've been bringing in people to kill. Why did he let you live?
Give me more of that.
But we never saw, like, he's just kind of in scenes. And I was like, we should have been like, he should have, why didn't we see him lure anyone? And why not trick the audience and have us be like, oh, is that Michael Myers?
Right.
Is he saying this because like he's Michael Myers?
Right. And for a brief moment when we first saw him, I thought, oh crap, is that
I also was like, oh, he's now just unhoused,
right,
maskless, trying to figure it out.
Yeah. And then that went nowhere. As many things in this film.
That's the biggest problem with this movie is every time you're like, well, that's an interesting idea. It feels like instead of doing a full theme or story or idea with it, David Gordon Green was just like, see?
Well, I think
it's a radio host spreading misinformation. Get it?
And I think for me, that is my overall big thing about this series as a whole. It kind of feels, and I'm going to probably piss some people off, but I kind of how I feel about the last Star Wars trilogy. It's just like, there isn't a story. Like, you made film to film and kind of like, we'll wing it. After the first one did really well, like, all right, cool, from this point on, we'll call it a day and see whatever we throw at a wall, see what sticks.
I was at the Comic-Con where they were like, kills and ends. And I was like, well, they wouldn't choose these titles if they didn't have a Those are great titles. And I think even when we did Kills, I was like, you know what? This wasn't great, but this might just like, maybe they're going to stick this landing. And now I'm like, what were we doing this whole time?
Yeah.
What were we? Because it's like all the things in 2018 that I ignored because of the stuff I liked, where it's like, oh, there is a lot of comedy and there are a lot of superfluous background characters and there isn't really a lot, just kept getting more and more. And I was like, oh, whoever was holding back that stuff by the time we got here,
they're like, let's go.
Every character had to have an accent. Where does he think Haddonfield is on a map? Why are there Southern accents and New York accents and people who just like watched Taxi Driver once? I was like, what are we all? And some Corey's mom sounds like she's doing like Venom's San Francisco accent. I was like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
It's a shame because there's so much in it that I'm like, what a lot of promise. And man, when you wanted to, you made a good slasher movie. You just clearly didn't want to for like 90 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's also weird because I'm like, okay, we did a lot to avoid the Rob Zombie Halloween movies. But Friday the 13th Part 5 also is when people are like, this is bad. It should just be, why isn't it? Why not have Jason? And I was like, why did we also avoid that one? The idea that you stole.
This film reminds me a lot of Freddy 2, Freddy's Revenge, because Freddy, it's very different than any of the other Freddy films where it's like, all right, this person starts bringing Freddy into the real life. It's like, is this person Freddy or is this not? And it's subsequently gotten better looks as it's gone along. But I'm like, oh yeah, that handled it because you didn't have any of the original characters. You kind of did your own thing. You're like, all right, cool, that's the world we live in. I think that's what this would have done better at. It's like, let's take a Freddy 2 page and like get the Strodes out the way. Michael might even be, we kill Michael, or he's very much hampered or on the shelf, and let's do our own thing.
Yeah.
They chose to play this middle ground, and because of that, it is now pissing off a little bit of everybody.
Yeah, because it is very much like, oh, if this was not a Halloween movie, I don't think I would be upset. I think I would just be like, yeah, it's just not scary.
Yeah, it's not scary, but it's a cool character study, but it's not scary.
It's a good idea, but like crank up all of it, I guess. Like more kills, more tension, more scares. Cause like I saw Smile the week before. It was like, well, this is how you do it. There are jump scares and tension, and this is about trauma too. And ooh.
Well, here's the thing: like, if you just made it about whatever you wanted, if you made it about Corey's story, then that means you don't have to spend your last 25 minutes or 20 minutes on Laurie and Michael finishing off their final battle. You can remove that and then tell more of what you actually need to tell. But it felt like they had to tell that story and be like, oh crap, this is a Halloween movie. We need to finish off what we started.
Yeah.
And that
we've been marketing this movie as the final showdown, and we have not had that.
And neither of them have seen each other for the last hour and 45 minutes.
Then we just have to like use the same ending where it's like, oh, all the rooms are lit and the boogeyman's gone. Yeah. And I was like, all right, fine. Like, okay, use the Halloween 3 font and do this. And you're now both doing an homage, but you're also like, you've thrown out what made almost all 3 of these characters strong women and interesting. And you at one point have Jamie Lee Curtis be like, you need someone who makes you want to grab your body and say, fuck grief. And I was like, whoa,
what? Like, what? You changed. Allison's a completely different character. So all of these women that we made 3 strong women at the end, neither of them matter.
Gone. All of them.
No one.
Yep. One of them's dead. One of them's returned to like an untraumatized, domesticated life, and one of them hates Laurie.
Yeah.
And is on having these weird, long rebel without a cause bike scenes. Why did we need to do that twice?
Don't need why we do 2 of those sequences. Don't know.
Man, so many just like, oh, guys, you're so close, but you're just not there. Like, finish your movie, and then we can go tell. This is like Halloween Begins. Yeah. If you had done Halloween Ends and then we just had a kid pick up the mask, I would have been like, all right,
this makes sense.
I got it. Get the franchise away from Michael Myers. We did that story. Cool.
Yeah, we get Jamie off the board. Jamie Lee Curtis is off the board. Cool. Now we can continue on.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
In another 5 or 6 years, somebody else will have an idea. And now we get to watch these guys go do 3 Exorcist movies.
joy.
Isn't that wild? Isn't that nuts to think about? That's another one that I'm like, I don't know that we need. This stands
I don't know if I
alone.
need that many films of Exorcist. I kind of get the gist of it.
I got it. And you know what? We made a lot of
Yeah.
Exorcist movies between now and then.
There's so many of them.
None of them have been as good as The Exorcist. So I don't know. This kind of feels like doing a Jaws movie or Back to the Future, where I'd be like, I don't know that we need to do this.
I think we got the point. I think we got it.
Yeah, we got it. We nailed it that time. We really hit home. I don't know that we need. Oh man, it made less 41 million.
I mean, that's normal.
You know, perfectly fine post-COVID Halloween. Less than the other two.
Hills wasn't received well, so it had an effect on this box office. That makes sense.
Yeah, I got it. Yep. Third week of, I think, Smile's third weekend, which, I mean, that movie barely had a drop off in week 2. That was great.
No, it's holding strong. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, and then, you know, next week will be Black Adam, and that'll be it.
Yeah.
Like, that'll be.
It's interesting. It'll be interesting because we're in the spooky season, but I don't think when this all comes around, between Black Adam, the George Clooney movie, and a couple other things, I don't think a horror movie is going to be at the top when Halloween actually hits around, which is weird.
Smile, I could see Smile maybe coming back around.
It might hang in. Yeah,
but otherwise, yeah. I mean, that's all she wrote, and then I don't know. That's our show, guys. We'll be back next time.
Yeah.
Black Adam's coming. The DCEU is still going, I guess. I want to say strong, but that's not the right word. Like, in any context, is that the right word? There might not even be a DC next week based on how Zaslav's doing things.
Yeah.
Some days you just wake up and Cartoon Network's gone, but we're not gone. So you should leave us a review on leave us a review on iTunes or Spotify or Google Play. Follow the show at Hollywood ADI. I'm at As Always Blake. Terrence is at Terrence Tatum, and Terrence also operates and runs our YouTube channel. Hollywood already did it for TV show reviews and trailer reactions and everything else that's not on the podcast. And we also have our Marvel Parrot show, which will be finishing up She-Hulk and Lawyer movies very soon. And we will see everybody next week.